Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here tonight with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, David. How are you doing tonight?
Still fighting that cold. So might have a little bit of a cough here now and then. But Bruce, that was a fun game. It was what a difference a night makes. Just as the Oilers got dominated in Dallas, they totally dominated that game, which was a little closer than the 5-3 score indicated, with the fifth goal coming into an empty netter. The Oilers really put the boots to Arizona in that game. The grade A shots were 26-9, were they? By our count?
Yep.
26.
26 is a lot.
26 is a lot of grade A shots. That's Swiss cheese territory for Arizona. And they were held in by some good goaltending tonight by, is it Scott Wedgwood? Is that his name?
His name is Scott Wedgwood, and he was fantastic in this game.
Yeah, he was.
Sensational. He made a lot of really good saves.
He did indeed, Bruce. So let's do our 2 good things, 2 bad things, and 2 numbers, and we'll double up on the good things because that's just the kind of night it was. What's your good thing?
Well, I'm going to cheat and lump these together. We could have picked all these guys, I suppose, but Edmonton's first line really took this game by the throat and didn't let down, and just dominated to the point of 11 points among the 3 of them, 2 goals, 2 assists, 2 primary assists for Leon Draisaitl, 2 goals, 2 assists for Connor McDavid, 1 goal, 2 assists for Zach Kassian, with one of those goals being a power play goal that he wasn't on the ice for. But I thought Draisaitl in particular just raised his game. He was a little sluggish to start, and then a little bit of cheap shottery started happening. And he started to respond both physically and by just simply taking over. He got hacked down a couple of times. That was pretty surprising. There was no call. Eventually, he did draw 1 penalty. But he really responded when Arizona defenseman, which guy was it? Getting there. Had a funky name. They all have funky names. Yeah. He when McDavid scored the tying goal on the power play, jammed it in, and the defender Ilya Lyubushkin from Arizona, there we go, rammed McDavid collarbone first into the net and just about dislodged the net by basically firing McDavid into it. And Leon was the closest Oiler to the scene, and he did exactly what I, for one, as a fan, always want to see the closest Oiler to a scene of a crime do, and that's just wade in there and not ask any questions and challenge the guy physically, which he did. No penalty was forthcoming, and at least they didn't call one on the Oilers for standing up. But from that moment, even as the power play had tied the game, at that moment, that line took over the hockey game, especially at even strength, and Arizona had no answers for them. Among them, I mentioned the 11 points. Among them, they had 20 shots on net. Leon had 8, Connor 7, Zach 5. And it was for Kassian, offensively at least, a reawakening. He'd gone 10 games without a single point. And all of a sudden you put him with those guys. Well, he gets a point by standing in front of the net and having the puck hit him and bounce to Draisaitl, who puts her home, On his regular home on the third line, the puck had hit him and bounced to whoever, and he wouldn't put it home. That's kind of the difference. But Kassian was full value for the points that he got later, especially the goal that he scored, where he, and he got absolutely robbed twice by Wedgwood. Kassian did. He could have had a hat trick in that game fairly easily. But he did manage one where he hammered a one-timer, and Wedgwood still got a piece of it, but it managed to go overpower him and find a corner of the net. So he had it going on, skating and getting 5 shots, 3 missed shots, but 0 hits from Cassian, and there's still I still have issues with him in the defensive zone, but he responded to the challenge that was given him tonight to work out with the 2 big boys, and you can't argue with a goal and 2 assists. And as for McDavid, I mean, he scored the 1-1 goal. He scored the empty netter, and in between times, he was just all over the puck, all over the play, distributing the puck, skating circles around them, and he did respond physically after taking that hit. He had 6 shots from McDavid, not 7. Nuge had 7. It was one of those kind of games. 6 shots, 3 hits for McDavid, and so he was a physical force in this game. And I thought basically the big 2 really raised all aspects of their game from late in the first period. And then finally they score on the power play to make it 4-1, and Jack Michael says, well, that should do it. And everybody's thinking, well, that should do it. And then Leon and Connor go and sit down on the bench for a well-deserved rest. And by the time the rest is over, they're back on the ice defending a 1-goal lead again. So
all right, we'll get to our bad things.
We'll get to that later, but it was nothing to do with them, those goals against, and they really did have a fantastic game playing against a weak team. Let's face it, Arizona was overwhelmed in this game for large part. Yeah. They just did not handle the 2 of them together, and I think Tippett's strategy was they won't be able to handle the 2 of them together, so I'm just going to put the 2 of them together.
Yeah. Draisaitl had 15 great major contributions.
15
shots. 15. Oh. I don't think that's a record. I think we might have had 16. McDavid 13. Cassian 7. And Cassian, of course, didn't play the power play like the other 2 guys did. So that was as dominating a performance from a line as we've seen all year in that game. And it segues, Bruce, into my good thing.
Yep.
Just because as soon as I saw the lines tonight, I was thinking, oh shit, what is he doing? Putting Cassian with McDavid and Draisaitl. And I was thinking, these lines, I was sitting muttering about them, and Puljujärvi on the third line. And I bet you there was lots of people on Twitter saying the same thing. I haven't had a look, but I bet you there was lots of criticism. But was I ever wrong? So the coach shook up the lines, and it worked out. Every line was really good until the last 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah. Every line was really, really good. I mean, that's how you get 26-9 in grade A shots in a game.
Mm-hmm. When every line is performing, including the 4th line. That 4th line was having their best game.
Yep.
Until right near the end of the game.
Yep.
So, Benson and Sevier, Turris was having a good game. They all were playing well. And so credit to the coach for coming up with the winning formula against Arizona. And I also liked another move that happened later in the game. We've talked about how Evan Bouchard's been struggling. And in his first 10 games, he made a major mistake on 1.2 grade A shots per game, 1.2. In his last 8, Bruce, it's been 4 per game. 4 major mistakes. Now that there was 10 in one game, and this is all at even strength. So it was really impacted by 2 games. He had one game where he made 10 major mistakes, which is like so bad. That's such a crazy number in a game. It's almost unbelievable, but it happened. Then in a game with 6. So a lot of those came in 2 games, but he has been struggling on defense. And tonight he finally stepped up. He had a really good game in lesser minutes. But nonetheless, his coach showed that confidence in him to put him out there when they're protecting a lead at the end of the game. And I really liked it. I mean, he had played well. He had played conservatively. He hadn't made many mistakes. And many mistakes, period, let alone on grade A shots. And he came through for them at the end of the game, just like he did all game long. So some great work there by the Oilers coaching staff and shaking things up and getting the right line combinations.
So yeah, like he didn't. Lagesson for sure wasn't out there at the end of the game. That was his partner for
No,
most of the game, but it was Russell,
Russell.
eh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was Chris Russell and Bouchard, which is like, whoa, that's really interesting. I would have had Cody Cece out there with Chris Russell, for sure. But
yeah,
they
you
went with
would think.
Bouchard, and it paid off. So that if it works, it works, and it has to help Bouchard's confidence to be out there. A player whose confidence was suffering. That was a really that was a strong move by the coaches, I think. So, what's your second good thing, Bruce?
Well, I was kind of going in the same direction. So, but you were talking about coaches' moves. I was just more or less going to talk about the play of the second, third, and fourth lines. There was long, long periods in the second period and large part of the third where the puck was locked into Arizona's end of the ice, and it actually didn't much matter which line was out there, other than one line was able to put the puck in the net, and none of the other lines could do that, but they were able to control the puck, create chances, create shots. Zach Hyman, he was powering the puck towards the net all night and winning battles down low, and they that line had lots of control. Um, the third line with McLeod and Puljujärvi
And Fogel.
and and Fogel, they were running like 7-1 in Corsi on the night, right? They didn't play a huge amount, but they gave up nothing, and they had the puck in under control for the most part. And that fourth line, as you say, they had a pretty strong game until very late. And Sevier and Benson, they created a few chances uh, uh, that they had a little bit of chemistry going between the two of them. That I really thought Benson was going to finally score on a couple of plays, but he also could not solve the red hot Scott Wedgwood. But uh, for just extended, I'll get into this a little bit more in my number, but Edmonton just so controlled sort of the middle 40 minutes of that game that they were, fully deserving of the win, even as it got pretty tense, and they actually wound up needing a couple of big stops from Koskinen in the late going of it from a game that should have been home and cooled out, but fortunately they had built a sufficient enough lead that they were able to on second of back-to-back with travel, um, they probably might have had a bit of an energy dip after they made it 4-1, and it got a little tense. But they played very, very strongly up until then, and I thought all the forwards in particular had a pretty good night, with these exceptions that we'll talk about.
I have a complete non sequitur here, Bruce.
Yep.
Just looking at Draisaitl and McDavid's scoring numbers to see where they're at right now. And I
Mm-hmm.
noticed something just that popped out at me, and I got to mention it. Guess who the fourth leading scorer in the NHL is right now? Nazem Kadri.
Oh yeah, he's been red hot.
16 games and 25 points.
Yeah, he's been pouring it on, filling the net out of nowhere.
On the power play, he's got power play points 9, so 9 of the 25. So good for him. All right, I guess this might put him in the running to be on Team Canada at the Olympics.
Yeah, he's
He
got elements that they would want to have somewhere on the team.
if he can keep things under control.
Yeah, well, that's the wrap-up guy for sure.
That is. But it's pretty hard to overlook the fourth leading scorer in the NHL, who's a good two-way hockey player and rugged. So Chris Russell is my second good thing, Bruce. He had his best game of the year easily.
Mm-hmm.
He 3 block shots, 3 hits. He led the team, led the defenseman in time on ice, led the defenseman in time on ice with 22:46.
Yeah.
He was the number 1 left shot demon. I thought it might, and Broberry was close in the amount of ice time he got. So he went with a Tippett and Playfair went with the top 4, and then the bottom pairing of Lagesson and Bouchard got a lot less time at even strength. So it was all pretty even, but Russell did get the most time on ice, and he was out there at the end of the game. And man, early in the year, I was thinking he was done. Like he just of course, he had been injured, and you have to have patience with any player who's been injured. It takes time, and he's now back to his solid self in the defensive slot. That was his best game. He's not the player he was, I think, in his first 3 years at
Right.
Edmonton. I think he's a little less than that. The last couple of years have been, um, he hasn't been the defensive slot demon that he was in those early years, but he's still a very effective defensive hockey player. And man, this is what you're going to need with Nurse out.
Yeah.
You need someone who can just shut it down on defense, and he can do that. So he's my pick.
Oh, with Nurse Keith and Cuckoo out, he's the only guy left from the four lefties who started the season. Even as he was the number 7 a lot of nights in the press box, he's the only guy left with experience on the team. I mean, he's right there. I mean, Broberry had 8 more seconds of even strength time. Like, they really did split it. They had 2 main pairs at even strength, and they spotted in Bouchard and Lagesson as the third pairing, and Bouchard got a few extra shifts, I think. But Russell, for all that, he's held together with the proverbial duct tape and baling wire at this point in his career. He's taken so many shots for the team over the years. This is 6th year here, and I mean, how many times have we seen that guy take one for the team, as that old saying goes? Like, hundreds. And here at a time where they needed a lefty to step up, he played basically 23 minutes last night and 23 minutes tonight. And for a 34-year-old guy that's small as Chris Russell is, and you look at his stat sheet tonight, and he's +2, 3 hits, 3 block shots, and I think reasonable shot shares, and he did. He came through. They needed him, and he came through.
It's really great to see, and I think if there's one thing that the cult of hockey writers have in common, it's an appreciation for players like Chris Russell and what they can bring to a team. And he has gotten a lot of criticism in Edmonton over the years, but I think we've always seen his real value. And it's just nice to see, because I was worried that this was going to be a bad season for him, that he really was past it. You see that sometimes with older players. Suddenly it's gone, and they are terrible. And so that's what I thought I saw with Russell in the first couple of games, like a shadow of his former self. But he's building up his game. He's playing better and better. And he looked like the Chris Russell of old tonight. So that was fantastic to see. What's your bad thing, Bruce?
Yeah. I have to go with the way Edmonton didn't finish off this game, and I'll pick one of the goals because you're probably going to pick the other one.
Yeah.
But it went from 4-1 to 4-3, like I say, with McDavid and Draisaitl on the bench, their job seemingly done, only not done. And I'll pick the 4-2 since I'm going first. And it was such a funky play. Like, you and I, we kind of been arguing about who was all at fault. And to me, the whole play was absolutely a mess, where no one was in their right spot. And the attack came in on the blue line on Broberry's side, and he pulled up and he tried to, rather than fade back and let the forward take the point man, he tried to one-on-one the guy who made a good pass across, where Tyler Benson, I don't know where he was, but he wasn't where he needed to be, and the pass went across. And the other 2 forwards, meanwhile, they're fading back to try and cover the front of the net. And Ceci, the right defenseman, moves over to the left side, and there's nobody covering the left point at all. And the left point is Jeff Chychrun, and of course the puck goes right to Chychrun, and he walks in, stick up basically in the rafters of Gila Monster Arena there, and he just unleashed a wicked slap shot and got tipped in front, and Koskinen had no hope. It was, just tipped into a tiny puck-sized hole, but it was one of those things that was either going to hit him or it didn't. Sevier wasn't able to take the stick of the guy in front. Turris, the right winger, who to me should be kind of thinking about the guy on the left point. He was deep in the zone, taking Cece's man. Cece rotated over to the left side, and it was, it's. I would love to be a fly on the wall as the Oilers coaching staff, actual experts at hockey, were discussing and breaking down this mess of a defensive play. I would be very informative because.
And they may disagree.
You see it one way, I see it one way. I bet you they would be laser focused. This is, Tyler Benson. This is what you need to be doing in this situation. And they had a bunch of young guys on the ice, let's face it, in Broberry, Benson, and, I guess the other three weren't.
It's easy.
But,
no.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just think sometimes plays are funky, and your defenseman is going to end up at the point. So I don't fault Philip Broberry on that play. And the reason I don't is the player has the puck. If Broberry doesn't go to meet him, he's going to charge the net. Someone's got to block his way to the net. That's how it works. He's up there blocking his way, but he doesn't want to be too aggressive because then he could get beat. So he's got to give him a little gap, and the player then passes it back. Broberry can't stop that pass. He's got to stop the passes down low, right? So I don't fault him. It's the next moment when that pass comes. What is Benson doing? And maybe there's something that was happening higher up the ice that I didn't see, but Benson's got to be on the trailer coming in there for that pass. He's got to be on Chychrun, especially because he's got to be aware that it's Jacob Chychrun. And he, to me, the main culprit by far, and it's not close, is Tyler Benson on that play, who otherwise Tyler Benson had a really good game, his best game, other than that one play. But he's got to be on that player. Cece went to cover a guy who was down low and could have got a very dangerous pass. He's got to go over there and cover. They've all got to rotate one, essentially. Sevier and Turris are both covering their men down low. Sevier fails to make the play that allows the tip shot, which was a real tough play for Sevier to make, frankly. So really, I think Tyler Benson is the guy that, I don't know what he was doing. Like, he was pulled to the middle a little bit and he didn't see the other guy coming in, and bam, that guy is wide open for a great shot. And I saw that as Benson's man. So anyway, have another look, Bruce. The coaches on the Oilers may well agree with you, or they may agree with me, or they may disagree like we're disagreeing.
I'd love to hear that. Yeah, with each other even. I'd love to. I'd love to be a fly on the wall there, because to me, like the three forwards and the two defensemen, none of them is in their position. So I mean, I know it's a rotation at a certain point, but that was a rotation to nowhere good, and the puck quickly wound up in the net as a result.
The problem may have come a little loose, higher up, like in the back check, in terms of being just not coming back and getting on those guys on the back check. And that's what I have to go look at it again, because once they're over the blue line, I think Broberry's hand is forced, and then but before then, like, so why is that? Like, why isn't anyone helping him with that forward right then and there? Why isn't that forward getting back pressure? Why is he allowed to just stand there for a second and make a play? So that's probably the more apt question, actually, in the whole thing, and that's what they might get at. And we can have another look ourselves and hash it out. Yeah. So my bad thing, Bruce, is the next goal where I don't know what Lagesson and I think that's a play where it's going to get every bit as much attention from the coaches. I don't know how many times, like, the puck went through Lagesson and RNH 2 or 3 times. They were just slinging it around right through those guys, sieving them with dangerous passes, and they weren't making the plays. Neither Lagesson nor RNH was making the play to shut them down, stop them, get on them. And in the end, this puck bounced around and they slammed it in the net. So the third Arizona goal was really ugly as well, and should be it's probably a good time to really rip into them, because they're all probably feeling pretty good. So now's the time to rip into them, and because everyone's feeling good enough that it won't be too crushing to hear, boy, you really sucked it on that play. Like, what were you doing? Like, what was going on there?
Yeah, Nuge overskated the puck in Arizona territory to begin with. He had full control of the puck, and he looked around for a pass receiver and didn't bobble the puck, and off it went the other way, and then around Edmonton zone. They might as well got the Calliope music going, and Lagesson got a clear chance to clear it, And frankly, I would have been fine with him just rifling it down the ice and taking the icing so they could get organized. And instead, he tried to cutesy it up the boards, and there was two guys there between them that picked it off. And then he never got back into position to take the goal scorer. He looked bad on that sequence to my eye. He wasn't alone. I mean, again, it seemed like Arizona was whipping passes across the slot, and if an Oiler did get in the way, it would be to deflect it toward his own net as opposed to away from the net or actually, make a play with it. And it just, I was not a happy camper watching that. I mean, they made it 4-1 a minute and 58 seconds later, and it was already 4-3. Like, I mean, get it together, clamp it down, put it away. Don't mess around. And they messed around.
They did. They made it a little closer than it needed to be, than it should have been.
Yeah.
But the silver lining is it created the opportunity for the empty net goal and points for guys that you want to get some points. So I'm always in favor of that, Bruce. I always like to see that happen.
I think Connor was trying to get it up to Leon, and Leon wasn't paying too much attention to the blue line because he expected he'd have the puck, and then he had to slam on the brakes and do this amazing recovery stretch to get the blade of his skate just barely touching the blue line to legalize his zone entry, and McDavid had to keep it for himself and score. But it was on one level an amazing recovery by Draisaitl. But if they got the job done and they got the puck in the net, and we'll take the 2 points out of that game. And you got to, you do have to give credit for them bouncing back from a tough game with no rest.
Yes.
And traveling to another city, and the letdown that they did have was after the game by right should have been put away, and it just was a little bit too far from the finish line to be forgetting about assignments. But for so long in that game, Edmonton played so well that it's, my harsh criticism of a few minutes is overwhelmed by my praise of a very long stretch of excellent hockey.
And that's true. All the players we're mentioning, including Nugent Hopkins and Lagesson, had very good games. Like it's a game where you could easily give everybody a 7. Like, there's no one should be lower than a 6. I think Kurt's grading the game, so I bet you there's
there'll be lots of good grades from that.
Lots of 7s, some 8s, and some 9s, and maybe even a 10. I don't know. 50 major contributions to 15 grade A shots, Bruce.
Yeah,
that's getting to be 10 country. 4 points. All right. What's your number?
My number is 20. And this was the number of consecutive grade A shots that the Oilers produced in this game. From late in the first period, just before McDavid tied it up, the Oilers had the last 4 grade A shots in the last 6 minutes of the first. They had all 7 grade A shots in the second frame, and the first 9 in the third period. Wow. 9 in a row up to the 4-1 goal, and then a few seconds later, Benson had a great chance off a terrific play by Sevier behind the net, and I thought Benson might get his first, and it's going to turn into a laugher at the end. This was just before the Arizona had the next 4 dangerous chances in a row, including 2 goals and 2 good stops after the 2 goals. But 20 in a row, like, have we ever seen the like?
No, I don't think
20 in a row?
20 in a row?
Yeah. So I was scoring this game because you were, playing hockey tonight? But
just
anyway,
practice, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, I was scoring this game, but you've already vetted it, and I'm not making it up. Like it was just like the ice just got totally tilted into Arizona's territory for about basically 40 minutes, from 6 minutes left in the first to 6 minutes left in the third.
Hell of a game from the Oilers. They really did rebound. Bruce, I'll go with, my number is 10-2, which is now Koskinen 1 loss record, 10-2. And he's doing that with a .908 save percentage. So he's like that pitcher in baseball who's got the 10-2 1-loss record, but he's got an earned run average of like 403
Mm-hmm.
or something like that.
Yep.
He's he's um he's let in a fair number of goals now. His save percentage is 908. I think that was his mediocre season. He was at 908. In like he had the good year and then he had a mediocre year, or was it the first year that he was at 908? I
First
think.
year he was
Yeah,
very
so that's
there.
kind of like he was kind of iffy that first year, and then he came on.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 meter man, he's getting the wins, and he's making some big saves as well. We don't generally work out their save percentage on grade A shots.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we kind of overlook that. We have the data. We could probably do it if we wanted, but we just never do it. But he hasn't. He's out. He's been a good goalie. Like he didn't outplay the other goalie tonight. That would be pretty hard to do. But he came up with some big saves and got the win. And he's been doing that consistently all year long. And it's interesting, this partnership of Skinner and Koskinen. Losing Smith is a huge blow, but
Mm-hmm.
they're getting it done. They're not caving in the Oilers single-handedly from this one position. And they're having more, I would say, generally speaking, they're having more good games than bad. Probably 2 good games for every 1 bad game. So, or maybe even 3-1. So that's okay.
Now the knock on Koskinen, I've heard Jason Gregor citing this a couple times lately, is that uh, he's susceptible more to sort of what we call a grade C chance, what
Yeah.
Natural Stat Trick calls the low danger chances. He's let in more goals on low danger chances. Last year the most in the league, and this year the second most, I think.
Those outside
So
shots,
it's the nature of the goals that he's giving up as opposed to the number that's upsetting people. I mean, he let in that one atrocious goal in Winnipeg, and some people were saying, "That's it. I've had enough of this guy." And I'm sort of going, "Well, he's 9-2,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
playing, with their number one's been out since the first week of the season, and the team's getting along not too bad, and like." He's not perfect. Well, there's not too many perfect players on this team. And, a lot of nights he does get the job done. And tonight, like he had no chance on either the 4-2, which was tipped right in front of him, or the 4-3, which was also tipped by Nugent Hopkins right in front of him into the top of the net. And then he faced a couple of pretty dangerous shots from the slot down the stretch, and he delivered there. So, he wasn't the difference in the game, but those say, one of those goes in and we're crying the blues potentially.
yeah. Alrighty, Bruce. So they play Saturday night is the next game.
At Vegas.
Oh, Vegas. Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. So we'll see how those 3 left shot D-men positions hold up. I don't know how long Keith is out for. We do know that Nurse and Kukuk are out for 2 to 3 weeks apiece, I think, and so they won't be back on the road. They didn't go on the road trip. I don't know if Keith went home. There's not been a whole lot of information going on about.
Yeah, there never is. No.
So, I mean, it's very possible that he didn't play tonight because it was the very next day and he just wasn't quite able to go, and maybe he will be on Saturday. But
I have to say,
surprised.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I've really liked Broberry and Cece. I mean,
yeah, they look good.
They've been as solid as Keith and Cece were. I know it's just a very small sample size, and Broberry had a bad moment tonight where he misplayed a 2-on-1, reminiscent of the way early last year Adam Larson misplayed a 2-on-1 exactly the same way and never did it again. So hopefully Philip Broberry will do exactly the same thing and never do it again, just like Larson. But I've liked those two together. They've looked good. That's it's been very heartening to see Broberry's play. Again, as in all things Oilers, there's lots of criticism of that draft pick. People thought the Oilers should have taken a forward, one of a number of forwards, and some of them are doing pretty good. Some of them have been kind of up and down. Right. But, ever since I've seen Broberry play myself, I've been okay with the pick. Like maybe they could have done better. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but in terms of this player, what they have with this player, I've always thought this player has a ton of potential. He looks like he could be a really good NHL player. So it's nice, it's gratifying, having that thought in my head to see that panning out with him playing pretty good hockey in his first 3 games. So.
Yeah, well, I'll say the same thing about him as I do about players that come in unpopular trades. The player didn't make the trade. Philip Broberg did not pick himself in the draft, right? It's not his fault that he's not Trevor Zegras. No matter how much you might think, well, they should have took Zegras. I think they should have took Zegras. Look how great Zegras is doing. Man, I really hate this Broberg pick. It's got nothing to do with the kid himself and what he's doing out on the ice. And to be on a happier note, I've been hearing very positive things about him from across the Orlogosphere, who generally have a soft spot for kids once they can see him start to play. When Zegras was scoring points from Anaheim and Broberg was buried in Bakersfield, well, grumpiness ensued. But now that we're actually seeing the player, I think there's a lot more positive thoughts in his direction in terms of what he might bring to the Oilers equation.
And that's what gave me the positive thoughts all along. Like we subscribed to that Instat service last year, and we saw him play a lot in Sweden. So we had something that other fans weren't seeing. They never saw him, so they couldn't really tell. Well, now you can tell and make up your own mind. And so this doesn't surprise me. Actually, something about his game does surprise me. He's a lot calmer now.
Yes.
He's like when he was at his best in Sweden, he was playing a pretty dynamic game, rushing the puck, moving the puck, and that led to some more spectacular errors and sometimes a loss of confidence. And sometimes he would go into games and look like in the games where he wasn't asserting himself, he wasn't able to play a safe game and play it well because he looked like he lacked aggressiveness, and they would go around him and you'd be wanting more. I'm not wanting more from Philip Broberg right now. I just like what he's doing. He's just taking care of business in a calm, steady way. And that's something that I didn't see. I didn't see before with him. It's like Samorukov. Like he had the reputation for being kind of up and down, inconsistent. And then suddenly last year, he was really consistent in Moscow. And I'm hoping that translates into Bakersfield and Edmonton at some point this year as well. So, yeah, it's nice to see that calmness in Broberg's game. He's playing a mature game, and I like it.
Well, tonight when he was on the ice at even strength, which was 20 minutes, shot attempts for 25 for Edmonton, 7 for Arizona. So clearly the puck was in the right direction. I would say very unlucky to be 1-4-2 against on the goals front based on that flow of play. And you might pick apart his involvement in those plays, but the general flow of play with him out there was fantastic.
Excuse me. All right, Bruce, let's leave it there for tonight. Thanks for talking.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.